This call is now being recorded.
All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to our latest community call. It's good to have you this new time, and hopefully it works for as many people as possible. And we will eventually hold possibly a second community call at a different time. So we have three small things on the agenda today. First of all, if you haven't taken a look yet at the Notion page, I'm going to share a link in chat here. But we are trying to develop a kind of a one-pager. If you have tried to tell your friends what ResearchHub is about, you might have noticed the struggle, how other people might not, initially get what is it about and what's the point in joining. So we are trying to put together a document where we, in a eloquent and elegant manner, try to shortly explain what ResearchHub is all about. So it's open to crowdsourced comments. I think, Patrick, right? Everybody can contribute to this document.
Oh yeah, definitely. We want like as much background as possible in order to have like the information appeal to like all kinds of academics. So yeah, everybody, like if you can contribute, very welcome.
Yeah, so feel free to log in and go over it and edit as you want. We try to make it as accessible to basically people around you as possible. Second, we are happy to show new designs for the editor program. And I think Kobe or Thomas will help me with that, right? Do you guys have something? All right. And lastly, we for the editor program, it's opening really soon, and we will need some sort of selection criteria. If we do have a lot of volunteers, unfortunately, not everyone might qualify, or we'll have opportunity to get them on board immediately at least. And so we will need to come up with a mechanism of how we can select those editors based on the input of all the active users. That includes you. So we need to discuss what would be the questions we need to ask, what would be the metrics we need to assess, or however we will handle this decision process. All right, let's start with the introduction. Patrick, do you think I should demonstrate the screen?
Yeah, definitely. If you want to, that sounds great. I'm also happy to drive as well, if that would be easier for you.
Maybe if you could demonstrate the screen and I can lead the discussion.
We'll pull it up now.
All right, as you can see, it basically starts with a short mission statement, right? And that part perhaps is not the most problematic, right? Because the general gist of ResearchHub, I think, is conveyed pretty fast, right? So we accelerate the pace of scientific research, but change the incentive structures and all that. Would you like to add something here? Do you think the mission itself needs to be elaborated more to other people you would want to introduce to ResearchHub? I'll give you a moment to read it first.
A couple of things, like in my mind, when I read it as a researcher, I always think like, what does pace mean? Like accelerate the pace, because if you ask some researchers, you'd actually say there's like too much coming out now. So they'd be like, okay, like, are you trying to even create even more research? Because it's crazy how much research gets released, like even hourly now.
It's true. It's absolutely true. And some people even use the term slow science, right? And slowing science down can be a good thing when we, do it in favor of, more streamlined and less noise, let's say, right? But I think the focus here is on the picking up the pace without sacrificing the quality, without pumping out new product necessarily, right? So for example, if the revision process or the review process itself is faster, it doesn't necessarily mean that there will be higher demand or higher expectation for more publications, right? So each individual publication would be, published faster, but doesn't mean there will be more of them.
Joey, thinking about like what tagline would appeal to either yourself or people in your field, like this phrase here kind of has the most attention on the page. It draws your eye immediately. So what do you think should be here that would be a good like first sentence to set the tone for recruiting people to ResearchHub?
I think like for a lot of researchers, it's like it's just like the pain of going through the whole process, right? Of like publishing a paper. Like you got a draft up, which that goes like how many hours into it, and then you got to give it to this peer review committee that you don't know really who sits on it, except like the journal is on who decides this committee, and you get through that comment, and then they get back to you like pages and pages and pages of edits. And then you go through all these edits, and at the end of the day, it might come down to, like, we're just not feeling this topic this year because of XYZ. And all that work is just, you're like, crap, okay, now I have to go reformat it for another journal. I think that's like the biggest pain in the butt for a lot of researchers. And it's like, I know I'm helping someone publish something right now, and I think she's tried like 5 journals, and it's always like, I don't know. It's like it's tough. It's actually really tough. And part of it is, maybe her paper's not as the greatest, but I guess it comes down to the question, what are we going to offer differently than the journals? And that's what I'm. Yeah, it's a hard question. It's like the pain point. What's the pain we're trying to solve? I guess, right? That's always tough.
Would the wording that emphasizes the alleviation of the hardships, so like maybe instead of accelerating the pace, more like streamlining and eliminating waste, so you don't do the same thing over and over again for different journals?
Yeah, it's like that limiting waste thing is like a good, and it's, I like, that's what I like. I mean, I don't know everyone else on the call or other researchers, but that's a big thing for research. It's just like there's just so much waste, reformatting things, changing the reference types because they want a certain style. Yeah, I don't know if you guys have ever gone through it, but it's the worst thing in the world.
So maybe if we position ourselves as kind of like helpers, right? Okay, we have a few hands. 1 second. Olga was first, I think.
Okay, yeah, so another thing I can think about right now is a lot of publications, because of the publication bias, are written into the desk drawer, right? So one way to kind of accelerate the pace is by publishing null results somewhere. So we are kind of like not digging the same place again and again and again, looking for the same effects that do not exist. And we do not know that they do not exist because they are written into the desk drawer. So kind of just giving this additional place to inform the field about null results and things that do not work also can in a way accelerate science, because you don't have to like come up with the same hypothesis again and like try and prove the same hypothesis again because you already know that it doesn't work, for example.
Shink, what you wanted to add?
Yeah, so because I'm quite new to here, so pardon me if I'm wrong. But first of all, I believe the speed part should not be a main concern, because as a researcher, I do believe the process of peer reviewing is very important. And another thing is from going through the community and seeing how it's built and reading the white paper, I believe there are certain points missing, even though that we are talking about, from the researcher side, what could be the benefit is that they can get independently funded and they can create and publish. But also, I think, in my understanding, the ResearchHub is very much about breaking down the paywall in academia and promote the research sharing, the community feeding, and allow researchers to be curators in Web3. That's what I'm understanding at this stage, but I could be wrong. So I think probably our wording for the first thing on this page should be, at least acknowledging that part.
But to dig into that specifically, the breaking down paywalls should be in this tagline. Which piece do you find most compelling?
You mean in the mission part?
Yeah, in this like highlighted, like the sentence here.
Yeah, I mean accelerate the pace of scientific research. Probably we should consider the wording around that. Like I said, personally, I don't feel like pace is the main concern in academic research. I understand that the editorial, review process can be a pain, but even if we redo that in the ResearchHub and go through, the peer reviewing process in a quicker speed, that should be a bonus that comes with how we design the scheme within the hub. That's what I'm understanding this.
So you personally much rather prefer the angle of open science, correct?
Yes, open science and curation, yeah, and community. Sorry, I'm just speaking out loud here.
Okay. Okay. So what do we want? Do we want to? I think accelerating the pace of scientific discovery has, been the very prominent. It's a one-liner for ResearchHub for a long time. Patrick, would we be comfortable with switching into something more, open science based and waste elimination based?
Oh yeah, totally. This reminds me of like we were looking up mission statements recently, and GitHub's mission statement is something about like empowering everyone to code or something. But then their tagline is the place where the world codes or something. So I totally think it makes a lot of sense to have a tagline that's not our mission statement. That's there as more of like a sales marketing thing to bring people in. And yeah, I think what we're doing is like open science, curation, and like community ownership. So I think it makes a lot of sense to do that.
Okay, that's a lot of great ideas. I'll think of ways to put them together, right? So what I hear so far is focus on eliminating waste, focus on the incentive structures. Scott suggested where research gets rewarded, right? So that's is that a good tagline?
I like it. I think that's pretty good.
Yeah, definitely the incentive structure is perhaps one of the more unique propositions of the ResearchHub. All other things kind of are possible, based on the fuel provided by this. Okay.
Do we have any more like tangible suggestions for the potential tagline? And I think it makes sense maybe afterwards for Anton to come through this and maybe suggest like one or two more we can all vote on.
Yeah, that's what would be awesome if you can come up with any examples of the taglines and share here or in Slack. That would be great. Right. In the meantime, Patrick, do you want to scroll down to the things people can do on ResearchHub? So this is the question I typically get from people when I introduce them to ResearchHub. They're like, okay, so what I'm in, what do I do next, right? So how would you describe the set of activities people should be able to do on ResearchHub? Right now, it's post and discuss. The hypothesis feature just basically allows you to summarize a certain claim and whether it's supported or not supported by different research. The ELN feature will allow you to basically crowdsource nodes, maybe share it with select people, discuss it. And then obviously you can use the tokenomics in your advantage to reinforce production of more of the content that you like seeing. And then the specific programs, the power user and the editor programs will allow you to do more specific tasks to get more research going. What do you think should be added here and revised?
I think one thing I don't see here, and I'm not sure if it's something we should add, is the ability to claim your profile. So like, let's say you wrote some paper, you can claim it and get some RSC. Just something to consider.
So like basically let people know that you are there and open for discussion as an offer.
It's like, so you claim your profile and you get rewarded for that. So it's like that whole thing.
Yeah, but I hear what you're saying, Anton, where it's like the Yelp profile, where like if the owners of the restaurant are there, you can actually talk to the people who own the restaurant, and like there's advantages there. And it lets the owners of the restaurant communicate with their customers. So I do think that's a cool value prop.
Could we have like a label on papers that have been claimed and the offers have expressed desire to talk to people?
We had designs for that, but they haven't made it into the app yet. So I can prioritize that because I do think that should be there.
Like, what do you guys think about like? I'm just trying to think. I'm just trying to wrap my head around groups, like grouping these functions or features into something more digestible. Because I think for me, like as I read this, I think it's like I'm still trying to get away. Like, okay, so like, what is it going to help me do? So is it kind of like there's a collaborate? You can collaborate. You can contribute, or you can, I don't know, help others or something like that. Just something more high level, a bit, one step higher level, and then grouping the features up into like buckets like that. Because I still have a hard time taking away like in one sentence, what does ResearchHub do based on these points? And I think if we can figure out that one sentence, it would help a lot. I don't know. That's my opinion.
No, it's a very good opinion. Yeah, I think like a one sentence above in this paragraph, as Joey mentioned, plus the grouping, and then the features within the grouping would be very helpful.
Maybe curate should be a section here too, like Jing said.
Definitely.
100%. So Olga introduced another interesting idea. Maybe we want to have a division for people who produce research and people who want to discuss other people's research, right? So they might have different goals. And you might want to highlight that both types of people are welcome here.
So Anton, you're saying have two different like one pagers, maybe depending on what the audience would be?
Not in the one pagers, but within the things you can do in ResearchHub, kind of like have a separate mini set of goals that would only make sense for people who are actively publishing, kind of thing. I don't know, like get feedback on your preprint, right? From perhaps qualified users who know what they're talking about. So kind of like express peer review.
Yeah, maybe like two different boxes. One is for your research, the other for research of other people. Like if you want to do something about your research and like put your research on ResearchHub, go here. If you want to just read other people's research and discuss, go there.
Yeah, I think I think it makes sense. I think another thing we can consider doing, I don't know if it's a good idea to do yet, but in addition to this, also talk about what are the features we will be building in the future, like peer review, definitely something we're going to do, definitely something we don't have right now. Maybe like it depends if this pager wants, if we want to excite people, then yeah, let's put it there. If we want to convey like honesty and what we status quo, then let's not put it there.
So my thought here, and curious what everybody else thinks, but I feel like we should focus this on like, why should I show up to ResearchHub today, and then update it like as we build new features. It's just good from like a legal perspective, and then like actually sharing it around, like, you know, why should I click on the link to ResearchHub? Like,
makes sense.
Patrick, could you elaborate a little bit, like, because it, you know, I see ResearchHub as like, you know, if it's like a Web3 platform and you're like connecting the community to researchers without the middleman per se. So like, our two target user groups would be the community and the researchers. Is that kind of understanding? And if those are two user groups, then like when you're segmenting the community, what like specific community members are you targeting? Is it those just interested, or is it, yeah?
Yeah, totally. So we've kind of been walking like kind of a foot in both camps currently. I know Brian, our CEO, is really interested in making content that like the average person can consume. One of the challenges there is that you need to actually have really talented people there to create that content. And so I think we need to appeal to researchers first, and then maybe help them craft like how they phrase things in a way that's easily digestible. I know like eLife does some things where they like help authors like create like easily understandable titles and like layman summaries of their papers. So I think like in terms of what we're hoping to accomplish with this one pager is like recruiting high quality scientists who like can show that like there's like a lot of cool stuff happening on ResearchHub. And then once we have that community, maybe trying to recruit more of like the consumer, like content consumer bucket afterwards. Does that make sense to you, Joey?
Oh yeah, it does. So you're kind of saying, you're kind of like, so you're trying to get researchers because they're the ones who's going to write, but also like critique the work. So you're kind of saying like they go both ways essentially.
Yeah, totally.
Okay.
I think one of the biggest obstacles, if I were to share ResearchHub to my colleagues or to my peer scholars here around me, is that, you know, like what's the selling point? Because if you tell them that you can post and discuss other research papers, or you know, post your research paper and claim that those tokens, I think we really need to discuss maybe in the later stage the incentive scheme, because from my impression, most researchers do not like to discuss their research papers, especially with people who are not in that niche research area that they share. So if you are, you know, from outside, a little bit outside their research area, and then the questions you pose to them, they might not have the patience to really engage in the discussion, I feel. So I think that's something we need to really discuss later, and perhaps to just, yeah.
So this
You think the monetary reward would change that attitude?
I'm not sure about that, but yeah, I think that's definitely one of the biggest obstacles if I were to be an ambassador in academia. Perhaps the first group of people that we have better success rate would be graduate students. If it's a more senior research member in a university, first of all, they are super overworked, and you know, they have less incentive, and perhaps they, you know, they are less motivated to do it. They have other admin jobs, teaching responsibilities, and you know, after a certain stage, when you have a secured position, you just don't feel like to try those things and share outside your comfort zone. But for graduate students, I think that's where we should really focus on first before we expand. Yeah, that's just what I think at the moment.
Yeah, I really.
If you imagine you invite a very renowned professor to post his or her research paper, and perhaps someone from who's not very familiar in this area asks certain questions, I would imagine that he or she would not be very interested in posting responses to each question, or to ask other questions from there. Perhaps graduate students should be more interested and be more incentivized to get the tokens, because another thing is to explain what is DAO to them and what is token reward, etc. Because to them, they might feel like, why do I need those tokens? And then, yeah, it's a lot of work compared to explaining to them instead of, the younger generation of graduate students. Because they, generally speaking, they have more understanding in DAOs and tokens.
That's very true. Patrick, should we move on to the next topic for discussion, because we are running out of time?
Yeah, definitely. This is a lot of good stuff too. So I think it gives us a lot to iterate on.
Yeah, and make sure if you have more thoughts on this, either add comments or edit stuff or send us a message on Slack. All right, so the editor program, the next stage in the reward schemas. Kobe, can you show the designs for that?
I'm
sure.
sorry, Kobe. Because I need to claim of my personal interest, because I'm applying for this editorial program. Actually, I've already submitted. So should I leave at this moment?
Yes, me too.
Okay. Okay.
No, this is amazing.
But I've already submitted, so I didn't know that it's too early. So I should have submitted after.
No, that's excellent.
One of the goals for our early editor program is like it's going to be pretty amorphous, and the more feedback we have from the people who are participating in it, the better off it'll be. So yeah, all of the early contributors, like, we love your feedback, and it will improve it so that way, like, we're better off in the long run as we recruit more people.
Yeah, no, thanks for sharing that. Yeah, I think as far as the edit program, let me quickly just summarize like one key paragraph, which is why are we doing this? We want to build a community. I mean, at the end of the day, like, if you look at any successful like startup that turn into something more, it starts with a community. You gotta have people and good people. So I think if we read this sentence real quick, so a thriving community is the heart of every successful platform, and ResearchHub is no different. Editors will play a key role in bootstrapping the ResearchHub community, and their job will be like a hybrid between an ambassador, a moderator, and a traditional journal editor. So they're going to be participating in scientific discussions. They're going to help curate quality content and help grow the community. And yeah, so that's the gist of it. Now we have preliminary designs. They're not going to be like, design-wise, it's not going to be like a huge leap forward, but there are a few key things we wanted to implement with this editor program. So the first thing we do is to give a sense of ownership to the editors, because they're really helping us out. And we want to create like a more sense of professionalism at ResearchHub. So we want to highlight the different editors of each hub. So this is an example of like, you can all see my screen, right?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, cool. Yeah, this is an example of like, and designs are in the works, but like just an example of like what it may look like. So here, 2 editors. So not necessarily one editor. It can a hub can have multiple editors. And another thing we want to do is to create like a sense of community by highlighting the number of users. So that would be like one of the changes. Another couple of small changes is going to be on a profile. For profile of editors, we would like highlight whether the user is an editor. So in this case, you can see this user is an editor of 3 different hubs. And then the final thing that I guess from a tech perspective and design perspective is going to be the most intensive. And the designs here are not fully complete, but just to give you a sense of what that may look like, let me find it. There's like so many things here. Okay, so basically, if you go to our profile page right now, you will see that we kind of group things together, contributions together into buckets. So you have like comments and submitted papers and stuff like that. it's not really great, because one of the aspects of the editor program is that we want to be able to basically, like, it's a corollary. It's important for us to showcase like what editors are doing, and in general what every other user on the site is doing. And one way we can do this is by fixing our overview page, our profile overview page, to be more Reddit-like. So if you go to Reddit, like if I click, this is like an example from like a user. So there is like the activity of the user sorted like top to bottom. And it seems like a simple thing, but that's something we don't have. And we want to help the users by showing like the activity that they contributed, but we want to also show help like the community by showing other people what people are doing to contribute to ResearchHub. So if I click on Joyce's profile, I can see all the things that he did. And yeah, so there is like a bunch of aspects to it, but that's one of it. So yeah, any questions? Hopefully that was kind of like straightforward.
Looks good, Kobe. Looks like a lot of work.
Yeah. Thanks very much. So we can expect like some of these designs to be in place by end of next week. Yeah, that's when we're shooting for.
I have a question. So that would be a perfect segue into our discussion of two things, right? So what you saw that the responsibilities of the editors are they're not super specific, right? So just do what's good for your hub, basically, right? So do you think we should be more specific, less specific? Like obviously you guys are highly motivated individuals since you're here. So but for other editors, would you want to introduce some sort of tangible measurements of their progress or not?
I think you need some guidance because like for us, like I run a committee that decides like what guidelines to approve for organization and like medical guidelines, and you have like a bunch of like it's like very smart people in the room, and they can't even agree on criteria to grade these guidelines. And this is like the crux of everything. It's like, are you editing for like a splash, like news? Are you thinking like you only do high quality, but then what does high quality mean? Like I'm biased because I would favor things that are more applicable to practical medicine, but then some people would say lab or wet labs science is important as well when it comes to medicine, and there's the two sides dueling it out versus when you're looking at blood markers versus actual outcomes, and how do you fall on that? And it's like super debated in the medical world. And this is just medicine. I don't know how the other specialties are too, but even just like a guidance of like, are you editing for a splash on news? Because that's okay if that's what the goal is. I think just being clear on it would help a lot. Because you're probably not going to get like we can try to get tangible things, but it's going to be super hard, and I don't know if it's realistic.
So you're okay with overarching directions?
I think so, yeah, and kind of go with the Reddit mentality. You have a subreddit. I don't moderate, but like I assume this is how it is. You have a subreddit, you pick moderators based on interests, and you align the goals. You kind of know what you're moderating for, and you have like rules, right? Like you should have at least like the stop rules, like that you can't do this, this, and this. But the other stuff it's going to be broad, and it's going to be really hard because there's going to be debates too. Let's say I approve something and Patrick says, like you should have approved that other one you dismissed as well. Who gets final say? How you determine all that stuff? Yeah, it gets crazy.
I'm a little bit confused as to how to ensure the quality of the content because I'm quite used to academia. So if you publish in a very famous and top tier journal, then most likely it's quite high quality research findings. But for probably some work in progress or other unpolished paper to be uploaded to the community, the editors cannot look into every paper in detail and in every niche research area within their hub. So and that's not taking into consideration of the peer review process, which is more complicated. So even up to now, just the quality assurance part, I'm quite confused how one or several editors can guarantee that, and how can we value one paper's quality, even especially if it's not from your niche research area and that you don't understand some part of it, and how would we know that the results are replicable, can be tested, and there are not other ethical issues related in order to get the token rewards. So I think probably that's something we need to work in the long term, but I think it's useful to note down those areas, because that could cause a main concern, which is the quality of the research, which is basically the points that we're making here. If we can't guarantee the quality, or how to assess the quality, the scheme around that, then the more we promote this, the more concern there will be, in my opinion. I don't know about what you guys think.
So to jump in, that's a great point, because like in theory, like an editor at a traditional journal is there to kind of be like a quality filter to a certain extent. And so I think the way we should think about this editorial program is going to be like an evolving responsibility set. So right now, our product is kind of closer to Reddit than it is like a scientific journal. And so like for the first stage, I think it's going to be more about like making sure that the papers that are like being talked about in your field are in the hub. So that's going to be basically like finding papers that are relevant and posting them, and then like helping to encourage discussion around those papers that is high quality. And so that doesn't necessarily have to be like peer review level quality, but just like cool comments, like making sure that spam is removed, things that are off topic. And so that's like the first stage. But we're building out an ELN where eventually authors will be able to like publish preprints on ResearchHub. And then I think the role will evolve towards that more traditional journal type of responsibilities. But yeah, just thinking of like today, what the editors do will probably be different than what they'll do in 6 months.
Yeah, that definitely makes sense. Am I right in understanding that even if the one of the users upload an unpublished working paper on there, the discussion around it is the main thing that we should focus on, instead of whether this is quality research or not? Because I can see that most of the papers uploaded on ResearchHub are published and are on quite good journals. So yeah, I think that's a good point.
Yeah, the quality here is not in the traditional editor quality sense, right? It's making sure that the papers that uploaded are not from the predatory journals, that are people well aware of. The links are not broken, the titles are not broken, stuff like that. As for the quality of the papers themselves, I think it's okay for papers to be of low quality. We have the upvote downvote mechanism, right? The community can decide that a certain paper is not worth mentioning by downvoting it, right, to the red zone, and that's going to be not your headache, the community's headache.
Do you think like if we're thinking kind of in phases, or like this, try something small and go bigger later, like do you think you should kind of make it known to the users like certain hubs are moderated, rather than try to get editors for all of them? Just pick like a few of the big ones, get them moderated, figure out our issues that we'll run into, I'm sure, and then kind of like evolve from there. Is that what you're thinking? Maybe you're thinking that already.
Yeah, we are thinking starting small. We do want to get the editors to the most popular hubs, if we can prioritize those. But obviously, as we grow, ideally every single hub would have an editor or multiple.
And Joey, to kind of expand on that, like we kind of had in mind a few hubs where we'd had some traction, like longevity and psychology. But then like we got in touch with Scott, who's a criminologist and has like some criminology friends who are interested. And so like I think for the very early stages, it's good to, see where we get traction and then maybe narrow down on the ones where we've got 2 or 3 editors that are like contributing high quality content.
Cool.
All right. We should probably move on to our next topic, the least nice one. How do we ensure? Do you think would be the ideal selection process for the editors? And maybe as a bonus, what do you think should be the format of us, other editors and other contributors, to ensuring that the editors who deviate from their assigned role are no longer editors? Right, that's an unpleasant thing to talk about, but that there should be mechanisms for that, right? What should it be during the community call? Should there be a vote by other editors? What do you guys have in mind?
To help frame this a little bit more too, a couple things we can do is like say you have to have a PhD in the hub that you're editing in order to be like considered for like whatever our selection mechanism is, or like in a PhD program, of that hub. And then we can also do something like a DAO vote. So basically just like anybody who's applied, we can have a DAO vote for each person and then essentially approve or deny from there. It may be hard to have a whole bunch of DAO votes like that, but we could give it a shot. And then if that didn't work, maybe do something more casually in the Slack channel.
Yeah,
Should we set up? Go ahead.
Can I just ask, if it's going to be a DAO vote, what about the privacy issues related? Because, for example, am I going to show everyone my CV or my covering letter, etc., or to give a brief introduction to the community? In that sense, I think, I think the presentation skills might be more important than a lot of other things. I'm not sure. I haven't ever done something similar like this. So,
It's an amazing point. Like we don't just want people who can speak well to be. So yeah, absolutely. I think it makes sense. Like maybe we can refine the form that have like a quick bio, like a required bio to say like this is what will be voted upon, and you can say like why you think you'd be a good editor, and then that's presented for the DAO vote portion. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I think that's fair. Totally.
I think if we go from the selection process, I think perhaps it depends on each hub's application amount and the candidates in there. So it might be quite different in medicine or compared to business finance. And based on the pool of applicants, perhaps we could have relaxed or more strict selection process. And for example, you guys said at this moment, it's very much like Reddit on here and less on the research intensive, like the knowledge part. So perhaps that require more, organizing around the community and the passion, the time you can contribute. Whereas if we develop into the next stage, we might want someone with more expertise in the area and more research networks who can bring in more users or more interesting discussions on the table. So I think it depends on the pool of the candidates and the hub itself, and also the different stages of that. Perhaps it varies a lot for the stage part for each hub. I'm not sure about the statistics behind that on the backstage, but yeah, perhaps we should make that into consideration.
I mean, would the DAO kind of satisfy this evolution of requirements, right? Because we would vote now and we would have a different criteria in mind compared to the same vote a year from now. So we don't need to have a permanent set of criteria, right? They will evolve over time.
I think you're right, Anton. And we could like list in the DAO vote, be like, how many current moderators are in this hub? So if it's like the first person applying to be an editor, that might just inherently cause people to socially have less stringent like requirements versus like, is this the 10th editor?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. That's what I'm afraid of. That some hubs will get overpopulated pretty fast, and we will have to do something about it. Okay, so we'll need to figure out. It seems DAO is the acceptable solution for everyone. Looks that way. So we will have to figure out a way how to do it logistically. But that's up to us.
Do we think there should be some set in stone minimum requirement too, whether that's like being in a PhD program or something like that?
Hard to say, right? Because across different countries, the PhD program might not mean the same thing. Like being in a PhD program, like in my previous PhD program, I was in a very different role than what I am now, but I had the same title.
Yeah, and then is there going to be verification if you start doing these things, right? That's a whole nother hard thing to solve.
Yeah.
I'm probably being too traditional because I'm from academia, but I do find, some qualifications are very useful, or publications, or at least evidence of your ongoing projects, or working paper at least. Otherwise it will raise concern in the community to let someone who's much less knowledgeable in the area to run this community. If we invite like professors or more renowned scholars to join us, it won't be very convincing. Yeah.
Okay, what if we do the same thing they do in the application for the grad program? What if you are required to provide a writing sample, like something you worked on the majority of it? There might have been contributors who edited that, but you were the first author. It might be a poster, might be a paper, might be a proposal. Doesn't matter. Something just to show us the gist of how you handle things.
But who's gonna value that?
The DAO.
Okay.
The DAO will read it.
What if we also, I'm thinking like Joey brought up a good point where it's easy for me to write text, but it's, you might not necessarily be the real person behind it. What if you just have to pass a quick 10-minute interview with either Anton, myself, some other community member, where you get vouched for by someone like another editor who says, yeah, this person is most likely the person they say they are. I got on the phone with them. I saw them. We talked about their field.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. I know, as much as I love decentralization, it's still new territory, and it's like a good backup plan, in case you'll catch that initially, right?
Okay, so just to reiterate, so is it a yes or a no for requiring Masters Plus, right? Basically.
Yes, from me.
I think so. Yeah, especially. Yeah, I think so.
Okay, Masters Plus, and the interview with either me or Patrick.
Yep.
Okay.
And the DAO finalizes the vote. Yep.
Okay, that sounds good. We should probably add it to the editor program page, the requirements of essentially being in a graduate program or above.
I'll sync with you after, Anton, and we can work that into the copy.
Okay. All right. Should we discuss something else? That were all the topics we planned to go through.
I guess the last thing is removal. So, for instance, I think removal should pretty much only be an activity. So, you shouldn't earn tokens if you don't do anything the previous month. So maybe 2 weeks of inactivity with the notification that's not responded to. One of us reaches out and there's no response, and then another 2 weeks means removal or a DAO vote. Should there be a DAO vote for removal or just pure inactivity?
I think inactivity should just be an automatic drop, right? We can't get a hold of the person, but we could probably bring in more controversial cases to the DAO vote, right? Because What if the person shows up once every 2 weeks and does one thing, right? That's technically not an activity. We don't have a strict set of things to do, right? So we can't really judge on that.
Yeah, I can also imagine a situation where a person is incapable of, performing anything for 2 weeks. So maybe inactivity can like put a hold on it, like not automatically remove, but put in a hold on it until further notice.
One thing Brian mentioned when we first talked about this idea is even if you get removed, it doesn't preclude you from reapplying. So like if you get removed, no biggie, life happens. Like you can just reapply and then get approved by the DAO.
Yeah, that also works.
This is interesting.
want-
It's gonna be like, I'm actually just curious. Have you guys ran a DAO vote yet, or will this be like the first DAO vote?
Informally, just from taking polls, but yeah, we haven't used Snapshot yet, so
Okay.
we plan on having a couple coming up here.
Cool.
All right. Any free-form comments before we conclude the meeting?
I'm not sure about taking away coins as a punishment. I feel like it's a little bit unfair if you're like taking away coins you already earned as a fine. So more of like just freezing the account, maybe.
Yeah, I think like it sounds like because like we researchers come from a very hierarchical organization, just structure and everything. Like I think like it'd be useful to have some tools at least for the editors themselves so they can manage themselves. Like I'm going to be away for X amount of months on a sabbatical for whatever reason. Like stuff like that happens, and it's like, okay, freeze. Is there like, do I freeze my account? Do I say, Patrick, hey, can you find another editor to cover for me? Like I can see those come up because it's just very hierarchical where we all kind of work from, and we're used to having a boss, and that boss is used to having a boss, etc. Yeah.
Maybe it also might make sense to require people to be part of the community Slack in the editor channel, so that way like people are easily contacted, and like if there are issues, like it's easy to reach out to somebody else in your hub to let them know, and we can spread the word.
Yeah, we can also organize some kind of like editorial meeting once a week or once to 2 weeks or once whatever time frame it is. So people should be present on it, or they should have some kind of notice why they're not present on it.
Yeah, we should definitely add that to the requirements. Like at least once monthly, you need to show up to like the general editorial meeting or like hub specific once we have enough people.
Agreed.
Cool. Yeah, this is awesome. Anton, thank you for leading. These are all really good ideas. Thanks everybody for showing up. I think this is like our most productive community call like in a couple months. So this is awesome.
Yeah, excited. Thanks everyone for coming.
Yeah, thanks for adjusting the meeting time. That was helpful for me at least.
Good.
Awesome. All right, guys, have a good night, and I'll see you guys on Slack.
See you later.
Thank you,
Bye,
guys.
everyone.
Nice to meet you. Bye.
Yeah.
Bye.